The jungle never truly went silent. Even when night settled over the dense canopy and darkness swallowed everything, the air remained alive with sound, distant gunfire echoing like ghosts, insects humming endlessly, and the leaves rustling as something unseen moved just out of sight. Every sound carried meaning. Every silence held a threat. And then there was a sound that didn't belong, a low, heavy rumble that rolled across the sky like distant thunder. Not sharp, not sudden, not the scream of a jet slicing through the air. Slower, older, out of place. And yet, in the chaos of Vietnam, it carried a presence that was unmistakable. At first, it didn't seem dangerous. But the men who had spent weeks, months, years in this unforgiving land knew better. That sound meant one thing. The Skyraider had arrived. By the time most realized what it signified, it was already too late. Vietnam had transformed the rules of warfare. Front lines were almost non-existent. Soldiers moved through jungles so thick that visibility rarely exceeded a few meters. The enemy wasn't across an open field. It was hidden, blending perfectly with its surroundings, patient, calculating, and deadly. Modern air power had promised dominance through speed, precision, and firepower. Jets screamed across the sky carrying weapons capable of annihilation. They were fast. They were lethal. But they had a critical weakness. They couldn't linger. They could strike, yes, but in a battlefield where targets appeared and vanished in moments, speed became a liability. By the time a jet identified a target and made its attack run, the opportunity often evaporated. Soldiers on the ground needed something different. They needed something that could remain. Something that could watch, adjust, and strike at precisely the right moment. That is where the A-1 Skyraider became a legend. It did not look like it belonged in Vietnam. With its single propeller, wide wings, and bulky fuselage, it looked like a relic of another era, almost comical compared to the sleek, supersonic jets above. But appearances were irrelevant in war. Effectiveness mattered, and the Skyraider was devastatingly effective. It could remain airborne for hours, long after faster jets had returned to base. While other aircraft came and went, the Skyraider lingered, circling the battlefield like a predator refusing to let go of its prey. For those below, its presence was terrifying, not because it moved fast or struck suddenly, but because it refused to leave. Its engine droned and roared through the jungle, a constant reminder that it was watching, waiting, and ready. It wasn't just a machine. It was a force, deliberate and methodical, turning time itself into a weapon. Each minute it stayed meant that danger was not gone. Every second stretched longer as anticipation and dread built. And when the Skyraider finally acted, it did so with overwhelming precision. The aircraft's armament was extraordinary. Bombs lined its wings, rockets ready to fire, machine guns capable of shredding anything in their path, and napalm, a weapon that spread fire with a terrifying intensity. When napalm hit, it did not merely explode. It consumed, clinging to vegetation, turning the jungle into an inferno. Trees erupted in flames, and smoke filled the sky. The air itself seemed to burn. The Skyraider did not release all its weapons at once. It struck in waves, circling, repositioning, striking again, adjusting with each pass to ensure maximum impact. It was not random destruction. It was controlled, almost surgical in execution. For those caught below, there was no safe place. The dense jungle that once provided cover became a cage. But while it struck fear into the enemy, it brought hope to the soldiers fighting alongside it. Pinned down, outnumbered, running low on ammunition, they heard that signature engine sound and felt relief. Radio calls crackled through static, coordinates shouted in desperation. And when the Skyraider responded, it did not merely pass overhead. It became part of the battle. Pilots descended dangerously low, close enough to see the details on the ground, to identify friend and foe alike. Every pass required precision. A single error could be fatal. And yet, these pilots pressed on, adjusting with every attack, circling, striking again and again, refusing to leave while troops needed them. Flying that low carried immense risk. Enemy fire rose from the jungle floor, rifles, machine guns, mortars. Bullets tore through the air, striking the aircraft repeatedly. Explosions shook its frame. Systems faltered. Metal bent and tore. Yet the Skyraider endured. Designed to absorb punishment, Its simplicity became its strength. Damage that would destroy modern jets was absorbed, and it kept flying. Pilots returned to base with aircraft riddled with holes, panels ripped away, surfaces scorched and cracked. And yet, after repairs, it went back into combat. Day after day, mission after mission, it never refused the call. The Skyraider's presence changed the psychology of the battlefield. For the enemy, it was a constant, inescapable threat. For friendly forces, it was a promise of hope. It became more than a machine. It became a symbol of endurance, a testament to reliability in a war defined by chaos. Speed, advanced weaponry, technology, none of that replaced what truly mattered. Persistence, presence, the ability to remain when all else must leave, these were the traits that won battles. Over time, the aircraft and its pilots became inseparable in legend. Stories of missions that lasted hours, fuel running dangerously low, ammunition exhausted, yet pilots circling above until the last soldier was safe, spread among troops. They spoke of planes damaged beyond belief, yet still returning, carrying the unbroken will of those who refused to abandon anyone. They spoke of a sound that could mean death or survival, depending on who heard it first. Even as newer aircraft entered the theater, faster, more technologically advanced, none could replace the Skyraider's unique role. No supersonic jet could stay in combat for hours. No guided missile could respond in real time to the shifting chaos of jungle warfare. The Skyraider didn't need to be new. It didn't need to be flashy. It simply needed to endure. And it did. Relentlessly. Unforgivingly. Heroically. Every mission, every dive, every pass was a test of resilience. Pilots faced threats that would have destroyed lesser aircraft. They pressed through flames, gunfire, and sheer mechanical strain, embodying the very essence of courage. And through it all, the plane remained steadfast. Damage, fatigue, exhaustion, none could bring it down. Each landing, each return to base was a triumph, a temporary reprieve before the next call to arms. The Skyraider became a legend not because it was fast, not because it was new, and not because it was sleek. It became a legend because it could stay where others could not, respond where others could not, and survive where others would fall. Slow, steady, and indomitable, it redefined what it meant to fight in Vietnam. In the end, the jungle learned to fear it. Soldiers on the ground learned to hope for it. And pilots learned to respect the bond between machine and mission. It did not seek glory. It did not seek fame. It simply existed where it was needed most, enduring, fighting, and refusing to leave. Through fire, through chaos, through the most grueling conditions imaginable, the A-1 Skyraider proved one thing. Sometimes, the greatest weapon is not the fastest, the newest, or the most advanced. Sometimes, the greatest weapon is the one that refuses to die. And in the skies over Vietnam, that is exactly what it did, time and time again, earning its place in history as the plane that would not be defeated, the plane that refused to die. Its story is one of persistence, courage, and the unbreakable connection between pilot, machine, and mission. A reminder that even in the darkest, most dangerous conditions, endurance can triumph over speed, and reliability can overcome chaos. The A-1 Skyraider did not just fly. It stood as a symbol, a living testament to resilience, determination, and the relentless spirit of those who refuse to surrender. And so, even decades later, when its engines have long been silenced, its legend continues to roar through history, a reminder of the aircraft that simply would not be defeated. Even as the Skyraider circled above the thick jungle, the men below moved cautiously, every step measured, every sound scrutinized. The enemy could be anywhere, hidden behind trees, in tunnels, along the riverbanks, waiting to strike. Sweat ran down the soldiers' faces, blending with the dirt and grime of the battlefield. Their eyes darted constantly, trying to make sense of shapes and shadows, listening for the telltale whine of gunfire or the unmistakable rumble of the Skyraider approaching. And then it came, its engine a growl rolling across the treetops, deep and relentless, announcing its presence with terrifying clarity. For the soldiers, the sound was a lifeline. For the enemy, it was a death sentence. Every pilot understood the responsibility that came with that noise. One wrong move could cost dozens of lives below. Yet each mission began the same way. climb into the cockpit, check every system, and pray that the aircraft and its crew would survive the day. Missions varied, but the essence remained constant. In one operation, a small infantry unit had been surrounded for hours, low on ammunition, pinned down by a well-fortified enemy position. Radio calls crackled with desperation. The coordinates were transmitted over and over, voices strained. Within minutes, the Skyraider arrived, appearing almost like a guardian angel, low above the canopy. The pilot had only seconds to assess the terrain, the enemy, and the location of friendly forces. Then came the first pass, bombs released with surgical precision. The explosions erupted below, the jungle trembling, fire igniting the underbrush. Rockets followed. Machine guns rattled in a staccato rhythm, cutting paths through enemy lines. The soldiers below watched in awe as the aircraft repeated its pattern, circling back, adjusting, refining its assault. Every return pass increased the odds of survival. Every second spent in the air risked the lives of the pilot. Enemy fire erupted, rifles, machine guns, even anti-aircraft mortars. Bullets tore through metal, sending shrapnel and smoke into the cockpit. Panels were dented, hydraulic lines ruptured, instruments sparking. Yet the Skyraider pressed on, steady, unwavering, enduring. Stories from the pilots were harrowing. One recalled flying for over 3 hours above a heavily contested zone, fueled dangerously low, his plane riddled with holes from ground fire. Smoke trailed from the fuselage. Yet turning back was impossible. Soldiers were depending on him. He circled again, dropped napalm and rockets, strafed enemy positions, all while the aircraft groaned under the damage. By the time he returned to base, the Skyraider looked as if it had survived a storm of bullets, fire, and explosions. Ground crews were astonished, crews murmuring, "How did it even make it back?" And yet, after repairs, it returned to the skies the very next day. The impact of the Skyraider was not merely physical, it was psychological. Its presence created a constant, oppressive tension for the enemy. Even when it wasn't attacking, the possibility of its return altered behavior, forcing the enemy to act cautiously, often disrupting their own operations. For friendly troops, it was a source of hope, a signal that help had arrived, that they were not alone in the inferno below. During prolonged engagements, the Skyraider often performed multiple sorties in a single day. Pilots described feeling as if the aircraft had a will of its own, responding to the chaos with instinctive precision. Every pass was adapted to changing conditions on the ground, to shifting enemy positions, to movement by friendly forces. It was not merely an aircraft. It was an extension of the battlefield itself, blending observation, judgment, and execution in a deadly ballet of firepower and endurance. Damage reports tell a story of near-impossible survival. Wingtips shredded by machine gun fire. Control surfaces jammed. Fuselage punctured. Yet, through all of it, the aircraft's core remained intact. Its simplicity and durability became legendary. Where modern jets would falter under stress, the Skyraider thrived, its structural integrity allowing pilots to continue missions under conditions that would ground any other aircraft. Night missions added a further layer of terror. The dense jungle canopy made visibility almost non-existent. Pilots relied on intuition, coordinates relayed over crackling radios, and the faint glow of fires and flares on the ground. Flying low through the darkness, dodging gunfire, releasing ordnance with precision. Every second was a test of nerves and skill. Yet the Skyraider adapted. Its slower speed, long endurance, and ability to linger above a battlefield gave it an advantage that jets could never match. The aircraft's resilience forged a bond between pilot and machine that bordered on reverence. Pilots spoke of the Skyraider as a partner, a guardian, an unyielding companion in the chaos of war. It had saved countless lives, often under circumstances where survival seemed impossible. Its legend grew, whispered among troops in foxholes, shouted across comms, immortalized in photographs and combat reports. Even decades later, historians and veterans described the Skyraider with the same reverence. It was slow, loud, and unglamorous compared to modern aircraft, yet it achieved what no other could. It persisted. It adapted. It endured. Its story is not just about metal and engines. It is about the human spirit, courage under fire, and the unbreakable bond between pilot, machine, and mission. Through fire, smoke, and chaos, the A-1 Skyraider demonstrated a singular truth of warfare. Endurance can outweigh speed, reliability can overcome chaos, and presence can define the outcome of a battle. Its engines may have long gone silent, but the roar of its legacy continues to echo in history, a testament to a plane that refused to die, a force that would not be defeated, and a symbol of unyielding courage in the skies over Vietnam. Every story, every sortie, every pilot and soldier touched by the Skyraider adds to its legend. It was not the newest or fastest plane, but in the theater of Vietnam, it became indispensable. A constant presence in a war defined by unpredictability, it demonstrated that sometimes the most powerful weapon is not the most advanced. It is the one that refuses to abandon those who rely upon it. And in the unforgiving jungles and valleys of Vietnam, the Skyraider was that weapon over and over again, proving time and again that it would not fall, it would not surrender, and it would never, ever die. Through decades, through stories, through history books and oral accounts, the Skyraider remains emblematic of persistence, of courage, of the determination to endure when all else fails. It is a reminder that the truest measure of power in war is not the speed of arrival, the sophistication of design, or the size of the payload. It is the unrelenting will to stay in the fight, to protect, to strike, and to survive. And in Vietnam, that is exactly what the Skyraider did.